The morning started like any other morning on Terminus 7. The sun rose over the farming fields, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Children walked to school with their bags on their backs, laughing and talking about the harvest festival that would happen that evening. Parents went to work in the mines and factories. Everything felt safe and normal. Terminus 7 was a small human colony on the edge of known space. Only 8,000 people lived there, but they had built something beautiful in just 3 years. They had farms that grew enough food for everyone. They had schools where children learned and played. They had homes where families felt safe. The colonists were proud of what they had created together. Nobody saw the wrack ships coming until it was too late. Captain Daeho Kim was sitting in his quarters on the warship Retribution, which was docked at Europa Station near Jupiter. He was drinking his morning coffee and reading reports when the emergency signal came through. The sound was loud and urgent, making his heart jump. He pressed the button to accept the transmission. What he heard made his blood turn cold. "This is Terminus 7.
We are under attack."
Repeat, we are under attack. Multiple ships in orbit.
"They're firing on the colony."
Oh God, they hit the school. They hit the transmission cutoff. Just silence after that. Daeho stood up so fast his chair fell over. His hands were shaking as he tried to call back, but there was no response. Nothing but empty static filled the speakers. "Sir." His second officer, Minji Park, burst through the door. Her face was pale. "We just lost contact with Terminus 7. All satellites are offline." "We think—" "I heard it," Daeho said. His voice sounded strange even to himself, flat and cold. "Get the crew ready, now." Within minutes, the entire ship was awake and moving. Sailors ran through the corridors to their stations. Engineers fired up the engines. Weapons specialists checked every gun and missile on the ship. Everyone had heard what happened. Everyone knew what it meant. The casualty report came through an hour later from an automated probe that had been near the colony. Daeho read the numbers 3 times because he could not believe what he was seeing. 8,247 dead, almost the entire colony. 3,000 of them were children. The school had taken a direct hit. So had the residential areas where families lived. Minji stood beside him, reading the same report. She made a sound like a wounded animal. "Those were kids," she whispered. "They killed kids." Daeho's jaw tightened. He had served in the military for 15 years. He had seen combat. He had seen people die. But this was different. This was not war. This was murder. "The Galactic Council is meeting in 2 hours," Minji said. "Earth is sending Ambassador Hyejin to represent us." "Good," Daeho said. "Maybe they'll finally do something." But deep down he knew better. The Galactic Council loved to talk. They loved rules and procedures and diplomatic solutions. They had never understood humanity, had never tried to. To them, humans were the new species, the young ones who should be grateful just to be allowed in their fancy club. The council met in a huge chamber on the neutral station at the center of the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their seats, waiting. They all looked concerned, but not really worried. This kind of thing happened sometimes in their perfect, civilized galaxy. Someone attacked someone else. The council talked about it. Eventually, everyone made peace and paid some money and moved on. They did not understand that humanity was different. Ambassador Hyejin Choi walked into the chamber alone. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but everyone could feel the anger radiating from her like heat from a fire. She did not bow to the council head. She did not follow the usual diplomatic greetings. She simply stood in the center of the chamber and spoke. "Humanity declares a state of total war against the Vrax Empire." The chamber went silent. Several representatives looked at each other in confusion. The Cathari ambassador, a tall insect-like creature, clicked his mandibles nervously. "Ambassador Choi," he said carefully, "perhaps you mean to say that Earth requests council intervention in this unfortunate incident?" "We can arrange—" "I said what I meant," Hyejin interrupted. Her voice was cold as ice. "Total war. No negotiations. No mediation. The Vrax murdered 3,000 children. They will pay for that." The Vrax representative, a large reptilian being, stood up angrily. "Your colony was in disputed space. We had every right to—" "You had the right to murder children." Hyejin's voice cut through the chamber like a knife. "You had the right to target schools and homes?" The Vrax representative said nothing. "Let me make this very clear," Hyejin continued. "For the past 50 years, humanity has been peaceful. We have followed your rules. We have attended your meetings. We have been patient and diplomatic. You took that as weakness. You were wrong. She turned slowly, making eye contact with each council member. You're about to learn what humanity is really capable of. You are about to learn what we have been holding back, and when this is over, you will understand why we chose peace in the first place. The council members shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked scared. They had all seen Earth's application files when humanity joined the council. They knew humans had a violent history. But that was ancient history, right? Surely civilized humans had moved past all that. This is madness, the Kthari ambassador said. Civilized species do not wage total war anymore. There are rules, protocols, we can arrange reparations, territory exchanges. No, Hyejin said simply. There is only justice now. Back at Europa Station, Daiho received his orders. They were encrypted with the highest level security codes. When he read them, he understood that everything had changed. The orders were simple and absolute. Make them understand consequences. No rules of engagement. No restrictions on weapons. No mercy for those who had shown none. Minji looked over his shoulder at the orders. Sir, this is... Are they serious? Dead serious, Daiho said. He looked at his crew. Good people, all of them. They had families. They had lives outside the military. But right now they had a job to do. Listen up, he said to everyone on the ship. 3,000 children died on Terminus 7. The galaxy thinks we will complain and then forgive. They think we will be civilized and reasonable. They are wrong. He paused, making sure everyone was listening. We are going to remind the galaxy why humanity chose to be peaceful. We are going to show them what happens when that peace is broken. We are going to make the Vrax Empire wish they had never heard of Earth. Junho Lee, the weapons specialist, spoke up. His voice was quiet but firm. Sir, permission to activate the experimental weapons? Daiho nodded. Activate everything. We are not holding back anymore. The Retribution left Europa Station 6 hours after the attack on Terminus 7. As it jumped into hyperspace, heading for Vrax territory, every person on board knew they were part of something historic, something terrible, something necessary. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been kind. Humanity had been peaceful, but humanity had not forgotten how to wage war. They had simply chosen not to, and now that choice had been taken away. The Vrax Empire had 3 weeks before the Retribution arrived at their borders. 3 weeks to prepare, 3 weeks to realize their terrible mistake. It would not be enough time. The Retribution traveled through hyperspace for 3 weeks. During that time, the crew prepared for battle in ways they had never prepared before. Junho Lee spent his days in the weapons bay, activating systems that had been locked away since the ship was built. Minji Park studied Vrax military tactics and fleet formations, looking for weaknesses. And Daiho Kim stood on the bridge watching the stars blur past, thinking about the children who would never grow up. The ship was different now. The usual friendly conversations in the mess hall had stopped. Nobody joked anymore. Nobody smiled. Everyone understood that they were not going on a normal military operation. They were going to war, real war, the kind of war that humanity had promised itself it would never fight again. But promises meant nothing when children were dead. When the Retribution dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Vrax territory, alarms immediately started blaring. They had arrived without warning, without announcing themselves through the proper diplomatic channels. In the civilized galaxy, that was considered extremely rude. Daiho did not care about being rude anymore. Tactical report, he ordered. Minji studied her screens carefully. 23 Virax warships in orbit around their military outpost. Standard defensive formation. They are... Sir, they are hailing us. What do they want? They are demanding to know why we entered their space without permission. They say we must leave immediately or they will consider it an act of war. Daiho almost laughed. Tell them nothing. Hunyo status on weapons? Junho Lee's fingers moved across his control panel with practiced efficiency. All systems ready, sir. Railguns loaded. Antimatter missiles armed. Nanite pods ready for deployment. Everything is green. The weapons Junho was activating had been theoretical until 3 weeks ago. Human scientists had designed them but never built them, because they were too dangerous, too destructive, the kind of weapons that civilized species would never use. But humanity was done being civilized. The Vrax fleet began moving into an attack formation. Their ships were large and impressive, painted in the red and gold colors of their empire. 23 warships against one human vessel. They probably thought it would be an easy fight. They were about to learn how wrong they were. "Sir, the Vrax's commander is hailing us again," Minji said. "He says this is our final warning. He says we should surrender now and our lives will be spared." "How generous of him," Diho said quietly. "Did he offer the same mercy to the children on Terminus 7? Silence filled the bridge. Everyone knew the answer. "Set course directly for their flagship," Diho ordered. "Maximum speed." Minji looked up in surprise. "Sir, that is a ramming course. If we do not turn away, we will collide with them." "I know." The Retribution's engines roared to life, pushing the ship faster and faster toward the Vrax fleet. On the enemy ships, commanders watched in confusion. What were the humans doing? Surely they were not actually going to ram them. That would be suicide. No civilized species would sacrifice their ship like that. But then again, humanity had stopped being civilized 3 weeks ago. The Vrax flagship tried to move out of the way, but it was too slow. The Retribution kept accelerating, getting closer and closer. Diho watched the distance counter tick down. 5,000 meters, 4,000, 3,000, sir, Junho said calmly. "Ready to fire on your command." "Wait for it," Diho said. 2,000 meters. The Vrax flagship was firing its weapons now, but the Retribution's shields held. 1,000 meters. Close enough to see the details of the enemy ship's hull. Close enough to see the Vrax crew running on the other ship's bridge. "Now," Diho said. Several things happened at once. The Retribution fired every weapon it had at point-blank range. Railgun rounds traveling at a fraction of light speed tore through the Vrax flagship like paper. Antimatter missiles detonated against the hull, releasing enough energy to vaporize metal and flesh. Nanite pods burst open, releasing billions of microscopic machines programmed to take apart anything they touched. And then the Retribution activated its hyperspace drive. The ship vanished, jumping away at the last possible second. Behind it, 7 Vrax warships died in the explosion. The antimatter detonation was so bright it could be seen from the planet below. The nanite cloud spread to 5 more ships, eating through their hulls, their weapons, their engines, leaving nothing but debris. In less than 30 seconds, the Vrax fleet had lost half its ships. The Retribution reappeared on the other side of the battlefield. Its shields were damaged but holding. Its weapons were hot but functional. And its crew was silent, watching the destruction they had caused. "Casualties?" Diho asked quietly. "None, sir," Minji reported. "Minor damage to the shield generators, but engineering says they can fix it." Diho nodded. He looked at the remaining Vrax ships on his display. They were not moving, not attacking. They were just floating there, probably trying to understand what had just happened. "Launch the message buoy," Diho ordered. A small probe shot out from the Retribution, broadcasting on all frequencies. The message was simple, recorded by Ambassador He-Jin before they left Earth. Her voice was cold and clear. "This is humanity's warning to the Vrax Empire. You murdered 3,000 children. You believed we would negotiate. You believed we would forgive. You were wrong. This attack is mercy compared to what comes next. Surrender now or we will come to your homeworld. We will show you what total war really means. The choice is yours." The message repeated over and over. The remaining Vrax ships received it. The military outpost received it. Within hours, every Vrax commander and politician would hear it. "Sir," Minji said slowly, "we are receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They are demanding we cease hostilities immediately. They say our actions violate at least 15 different treaties and protocols. Tell them we stopped following their rules when they failed to protect our children," Diho said. "We will accept their complaints and concerns after the Vrax Empire surrenders. Until then, they can watch." Over the next 2 weeks, the Retribution was joined by more human warships. The Earth military had activated every vessel they had. Ships that were supposed to be in maintenance yards were patched up and sent to the front. Retired captains were called back to duty. The entire human fleet, small as it was compared to other galactic powers, gathered at the Vrax border, and they attacked. The battles were brutal and one-sided. Human ships used tactics that the Vrax had never seen before. They rammed enemy vessels. They used suicide drones. They deployed weapons that violated every treaty and agreement the galaxy had made over the past 1,000 years. The Vrax military tried to fight back, but they were not prepared for this kind of warfare. They had grown comfortable with civilized combat. where both sides followed rules and tried to minimize casualties. Humanity followed no rules. They showed no mercy to military targets, but they never targeted civilians. Every human attack was aimed at military bases, warships, and weapons factories. When Vrak civilians were in danger, human ships would hold their fire or even help with evacuations. This confused the Vraks even more than the brutal tactics. "Why do they spare our people but destroy our ships?" one Vrak's admiral asked. "Because they are teaching us a lesson," his second officer replied. "They are showing us the difference between military action and murder. They are showing us that they could kill our civilians if they wanted to, but they choose not to. Unlike what we did to them." The message was clear. Humanity knew how to wage total war. But they also knew the difference between soldiers and children. News of the human attacks spread across the galaxy. Other species watched in horror as this young, supposedly peaceful race tore through Vrak's territory like a storm. Some called for intervention. Others stayed silent, afraid that if they got involved, humanity might turn on them next. The Galactic Council met an emergency session every day, but they could not agree on what to do. Some wanted to send peacekeepers to stop the fighting. Others thought humanity was justified, and the Vraks deserved what they got. The arguments went on and on while human ships kept advancing. On the Retribution, Deho received daily reports of their victories. Each one should have felt good. Each destroyed Vrak base should have felt like justice for the children of Terminus 7, but instead he just felt tired. This was not who humanity wanted to be. This was what they had been forced to become. "Sir," Minji said one evening, "I have been reading the messages from home. People are scared. Not of the Vraks, of us, of what we are becoming." Deho nodded. He had been reading the same messages. Parents asking when the violence would end. Teachers wondering what they should tell their students about the war. Children having nightmares about the battles they saw on the news. "We are reminding the galaxy what humanity can do," he said quietly, "but we need to remember to stop before we forget who we are." "When will that be, sir?" Deho looked at the star map, at all the Vrak's territory still unconquered. "Soon," he said. "It has to be soon." The Galactic Council chamber was more crowded than it had ever been. Every species with membership had sent representatives. Even species that rarely attended were there. Everyone wanted to understand what was happening with humanity. Everyone wanted to know why the peaceful humans had suddenly become so terrifying. The Cathari ambassador called the session to order. His mandibles clicked nervously as he looked around the chamber. "We are here to discuss the human military campaign against the Vrax Empire. In 6 weeks, human forces have destroyed or captured 70% of Vrax military assets. This level of devastation has not been seen in civilized space for over 300 years. Murmurs filled the chamber. Some species were impressed. Others were frightened. The Vrax representative, a different one than before, sat quietly in his seat. The previous representative had resigned in shame after the attack on Terminus 7. "The question before us," the Cathari continued, "is whether we should intervene. Should we send peacekeeping forces to stop this war before humanity goes too far?" "Too far?" Ambassador Hyejin's voice cut through the murmurs. She stood up slowly, her small form somehow commanding attention from the entire chamber. "You want to talk about going too far? Let me show you something." She activated the chamber's main display. Images appeared. Files from Earth's history archives. The council members had seen these before, but only briefly. They had never really studied them. Now Hyejin made them watch. The first image showed an ancient battlefield. Thousands of human soldiers fighting with primitive weapons. The death toll in the caption made several council members gasp. 50,000 dead in a single day. This was called the Battle of Waterloo, Hyejin said quietly. It happened over 2,000 years ago. Before we had spaceflight. Before we had advanced technology. Just humans killing other humans with metal swords and simple guns. More images appeared. Bigger battles. More deaths. Wars that lasted years. Wars that killed millions. The council members watched in growing horror as Earth's violent history unfolded before them. This was World War I, Hyejin continued. 20 million dead. And then, just 20 years later, we did it again. World War II, 80 million dead. We invented weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. We used them. The display showed images of atomic explosions, mushroom clouds rising over cities. The sheer scale of destruction made even the largest council members shrink back in their seats. For thousands of years, Hyejin said, this is what humanity was. We were very, very good at killing each other. We developed tactics and strategies that you cannot even imagine. We fought wars where the goal was not just to defeat the enemy, but to destroy them completely. We called it total war. She paused, letting her words sink in. And then we almost destroyed ourselves. We built enough weapons to kill every human on Earth 100 times over. We came within minutes of using them. We stood on the edge of extinction and looked into that darkness. The chamber was completely silent now. Every species was watching the small human woman finally understanding. That is when we made a choice, Hyejin said. We chose to stop. We chose peace. Not because we were weak, not because we could not fight anymore, but because we understood where that path led. We understood that if we did not change, we would die. She turned off the display and looked directly at the council. When humanity applied to join the Galactic Council, we told you we were peaceful. We were telling the truth. We had been at peace for over 100 years, but you never asked why. You never wondered what it took for a species as violent as ours to choose peace. It took discipline, she continued. It took strength. It took the memory of millions of dead to teach us that war should be the absolute last option. So when we joined your council, we followed your rules. We were patient. We were diplomatic. We held back everything we were capable of. The Vrax representative spoke up, his voice shaking. But we did not know. How could we know you were so dangerous? Hyejin looked at him coldly. That is exactly the problem. You did not know. You did not bother to learn about us. You saw our peace and assumed it meant weakness. You thought you could attack a human colony, kill 3,000 children, and we would just complain to the council and accept whatever punishment you agreed to pay. She walked closer to the Vrax representative. You were wrong. And now your empire is paying the price for that mistake. The Cathari ambassador cleared his throat. Ambassador Choi, we understand your anger. The attack on Terminus 7 was terrible. But surely there must be a point where humanity's response becomes excessive. You have destroyed most of the Vrax military. You have crippled their economy. Is that not enough?
Enough?
Hyejin repeated. 3,000 children are dead. How many dead Vrax soldiers equals 3,000 dead children? Can you tell me that number? No one answered. Let me be very clear about something, Hyejin said. The human military is currently operating under strict rules of engagement. Every target must be verified as military. Every attack must minimize civilian casualties. We have evacuated Vrax civilians from combat zones. We have provided medical aid to wounded enemy soldiers. We have followed the laws of war even when the Vrax did not. She paused. But if you try to stop us before we get justice, those rules will disappear. If you send peacekeepers to protect the Vrax from consequences, humanity will view that as choosing their side, and we will respond accordingly. The threat hung in the air. Several council members looked at each other nervously. They had seen what human forces could do when they followed rules. They did not want to see what would happen if those rules were removed. A small voice spoke up from the back of the chamber. It was the representative from the Palin species, a race of peaceful scholars. Ambassador Choi, may I ask a question? Hyejin nodded. You say humanity chose peace over 100 years ago. You say you learned from your violent past. But now you are at war again. Are you not afraid of becoming what you used to be? Are you not afraid of forgetting the lessons you learned? For the first time, Hyejin's expression softened slightly. Yes, every day, every battle, every destroyed ship. We are terrified of that. She looked around the chamber at all the assembled species. That is why we need to finish this quickly. That is why we need justice for Terminus 7. Because the longer this war continues, the more we risk losing ourselves. The more we risk returning to what we were. We want to be peaceful again, she continued. We want to return to diplomacy and following your rules. But first, the galaxy needs to understand something. You need to understand that our peace is a choice, not a limitation. You need to understand that if you attack our children, there will be consequences. Real consequences. Not just fines or territory adjustments or diplomatic complaints. The Cathari ambassador thought for a long moment. What would it take for humanity to accept peace? What does justice look like to you? Every officer involved in ordering or carrying out the Terminus 7 attack must be tried for war crimes, Hyejin said immediately. Not by Vrax courts, not by your council. By human law. They killed human children, so they will face human justice. The Vrax government must formally acknowledge what they did, she continued. No calling it an accident. No claiming it was justified. They must admit they committed murder and apologize. And finally, she said, the Vrax military must be reduced. No species that murdered 3,000 children should have the ability to do it again. The Vrax representative stood up angrily. You want to disarm us completely?
You want to leave us defenseless?
No, Hyejin said calmly. You can keep enough ships to defend your space from pirates and protect your trade routes. But you will not have enough to invade anyone else's territory. You will not have enough to bombard another colony. This is humiliation, the Vrax representative shouted. This is mercy, Hyejin replied. The alternative is that Captain Daiho Kim and the human fleet continue their advance until they reach your homeworld. And then you will learn what humiliation really means. The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species supported humanity's demands. Others thought they were too harsh. The Cathari ambassador tried to restore order, but everyone kept talking. Finally, an elderly representative from the Dorvian species stood up. The Dorvians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, and everyone respected their wisdom. When he spoke, the chamber fell silent. I have been on this council for 70 years, the Dorvian said. I have seen many conflicts, many wars, many species threatening each other. But I have never seen anything like what humanity is doing. He looked at Hyejin. You are right that we did not understand you. We saw your peace and assumed it meant you were not capable of violence. That was foolish of us. Every species has violence in their past. But most species, once they became civilized, forgot how to truly fight. They forgot what war really means. Humanity did not forget, he continued. You remembered. You carried that knowledge with you. That terrible understanding of what you were capable of. And you chose every day not to use it. That took more strength than we gave you credit for. He turned to address the whole council. The Vrax made a terrible mistake. They poked a sleeping tiger, and now they are surprised it has teeth. But Ambassador Choi is right. If we try to protect them from justice, humanity will see that as the galaxy condoning the murder of children. And I do not want to live in a galaxy where the 3 months after the attack on Terminus 7, the human fleet reached the edge of the Vrax home system. Captain Daiho Kim stood on the bridge of the Retribution, staring at the blue and green planet on the main display. Vrax Prime, the homeworld of the species that had killed 3,000 children. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They had been fighting for 3 months straight with only brief breaks for repairs and resupply. Everyone was tired. Everyone wanted this to be over. Sir, Minji Park said from her tactical station, we are detecting massive civilian traffic leaving the planet. Thousands of ships. It looks like they are evacuating. Daiho nodded. The Vrax government knew the human fleet was coming. They knew what humanity was capable of. And they were scared. Any military vessels? He asked. 50 warships in defensive orbit, Minji reported. But sir, they are not moving to intercept us. They are just holding position around the planet. Junho Lee looked up from his weapons console. Sir, I am detecting a transmission from the planet. It is marked as urgent diplomatic communication. Put it through, Daiho ordered. The screen changed to show a Vrax official. He looked old and tired, with scales that had lost their bright color. This is Prime Minister Vorak of the Vrax Empire. I am requesting immediate negotiations to end hostilities. You want to negotiate now? Daiho asked coldly. After 3 months? After 70% of your military is destroyed? Yes, Vorak said simply. We were wrong. We made a terrible mistake attacking your colony. We will accept your terms. All of them. Just please do not attack our homeworld. Daiho felt something twist in his chest. This was what they had been fighting for. This was the moment when the Vrax finally understood what they had done. But looking at the scared old alien on the screen, Daiho did not feel victorious. He just felt tired. Stand by, he said, and cut the transmission. He turned to his crew. Opinions? Minji spoke first. Sir, we have accomplished our mission. The Vrax are surrendering. We should accept. Junho nodded in agreement. We came here for justice, not revenge. If we attack their homeworld now, we become the monsters. But Daiho did not answer. He was looking at the planet on the display, thinking about all the Vrax who lived there. Billions of them, most of whom had nothing to do with the attack on Terminus 7. Civilians, families, children like the ones who died on Terminus 7. His hand moved toward the weapons controls. It would be so easy. One order, that was all it would take. He could destroy every military installation on that planet. He could cripple them so completely they would never threaten anyone again. He could make them feel what humanity felt when Terminus 7 burned. "Sir," Minji said quietly, "what are your orders?" Deho's finger hovered over the firing button. 3,000 dead children, 3,000 futures erased, 3,000 families destroyed. The Vraks had done that without hesitation, without mercy. Why should humanity show them mercy now? A message alert beeped on his console. Deho almost ignored it, but something made him check. It was from Earth, from Admiral Bomin Chang, the head of Earth's military. The message was short. "Remember who we are," 4 words. That was all. But they hit Deho harder than any weapon. He thought about Earth's history. All those wars, all that death. Humanity had been very good at revenge once. They had been experts at making their enemies suffer. They had turned entire continents into graveyards in the name of justice, and it had almost destroyed them. That was why they had chosen peace. Not because they could not fight, but because they understood where unlimited violence led. They understood that if you become the monster to fight the monster, you lose yourself. Deho pulled his hand away from the weapons controls. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. Vorak's face appeared on the screen again, looking even more terrified than before. "Captain Kim, please, shut up and listen," Deho interrupted. "You are right. You made a terrible mistake. You killed 3,000 of our children. You thought we would negotiate and forgive. You thought wrong." He paused. "But humanity learned a long time ago that there is a difference between justice and revenge. Justice means you face consequences for what you did. Revenge means we do to you what you did to us. If we wanted revenge," Deho continued, "we would bombard your planet right now. We would kill your civilians the way you killed ours. We would make you feel the same pain we felt. And it would feel good for about 5 minutes. And then we would have to live with what we became." Vorak listened silently, his eyes wide. "So here is what is going to happen," Deho said. "You are going to surrender unconditionally. Every officer involved in the Terminus 7 attack will be turned over to human authorities to face trial. You will disarm your military to defensive levels only. You will pay reparations to the families of everyone who died, and you will formally apologize for what you did. And if you do all that," Deho finished, "then we will not attack your homeworld. We will not kill your civilians. We will show you mercy that you did not show us, because that is what it means to be better." Vorak nodded quickly. Yes, we agree. All of it, thank you, Captain. Thank you for sparing our people." "Do not thank me," Deho said coldly. "Thank the children who died on Terminus 7. Thank them for teaching us that mercy is more important than revenge, even when revenge would feel so much better." He cut the transmission and sat down heavily in his command chair. His hands were shaking. He had been so close to giving that order, so close to becoming everything humanity had promised itself it would not be anymore. "Good call, sir," Junho said quietly. Deho just nodded. He did not trust himself to speak yet. Over the next week, the Vraks government followed through on everything they promised. They surrendered their military. They turned over the officers responsible for Terminus 7. They issued a formal apology that was broadcast across the galaxy. They began the process of paying reparations, and Captain Deho Kim and the crew of the Retribution watched it all happen, feeling strange emotions they could not quite name. On Earth, people celebrated. The war was over. Justice had been served. The Vraks would never threaten humanity again. It should have felt like a victory, but for the people who had actually fought the war, it felt more complicated than that. They had won. They had protected humanity's honor. They had made sure the galaxy understood that attacking human children had consequences, but they had also seen what humanity was capable of when the restraints came off. They had seen how easy it was to slide back into old patterns, how good it felt to destroy their enemies completely, how tempting it was to keep going, to take revenge instead of just justice. Minji sat in the mess hall one evening, staring at her food without eating it. Junho sat down across from her. "You okay?" he asked. "I do not know," Minji admitted. "We won, we should be happy. But I keep thinking about how close we came to attacking that planet, how close the captain came to giving that order." "But he did not," Junho pointed out. "This time," Minji said. "But what about next time? What happens the next time someone attacks us? Will we remember to stop? Or will we keep going until we become what we used to be?" Junho did not have an answer for that. On the bridge, Daiho received a message from the Galactic Council. They were holding a special session to formally end the war and welcome humanity back to diplomatic relations. Ambassador Hyejin would be there. They wanted Daiho to attend as well. He almost refused. The last thing he wanted was to sit in that chamber with all those species who had watched humanity tear apart the Vrax and done nothing to stop it. But Admiral Chang ordered him to go, so he went. The council chamber was packed again. But this time, the atmosphere was different. Last time, species had looked at humanity with confusion and concern. Now they looked at humans with respect and fear. Ambassador Hyejin stood in the center of the chamber with Daiho beside her. The Cathari ambassador addressed them formally. On behalf of the Galactic Council, we recognize the conclusion of hostilities between humanity and the Vrax Empire. We acknowledge that the Vrax attack on Terminus 7 was unjustified, and that humanity's response, while severe, was within acceptable bounds of retaliation. Hyejin nodded. Humanity accepts the Council's statement. We consider the matter closed. However, the Cathari continued carefully, the Council must ask, now that the galaxy has seen what humanity is capable of, can we trust you to return to peaceful coexistence? Hyejin looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. You can trust us the same way you always could. Humanity chose peace over 100 years ago. That choice has not changed, but now you understand that it is a choice, not a limitation. We will follow your rules, she continued. We will be diplomatic. We will be patient. But if anyone attacks our people again, if anyone kills our children, we will respond. And now you know exactly how we will respond. The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then the Dorvian elder stood up. I believe that is a fair answer. Humanity has shown both its strength and its restraint. That is all we can ask of any species. Other council members nodded in agreement. The vote to formally welcome humanity back to the council passed unanimously. Even the remaining Vrax representative voted yes. After the session ended, Daiho and Hyejin stood alone in the empty chamber. We did it, Hyejin. 6 months after the war ended, Captain Daiho Kim returned to Terminus 7. The colony had been rebuilt during the fighting. Earth had sent construction crews, supplies, and thousands of volunteers. What had been ruins was now a living community again, but it was not the same. It could never be the same. Daiho walked through the new streets with Minji Park and Junho Lee beside him. The buildings were nice. The parks were beautiful. Everything was clean and modern and perfect. But everyone who had lived there before was dead. This was a new colony, built on top of a grave. They walked in silence until they reached the memorial. It stood in the center of the colony, a large wall made of black stone. Names were carved into it. 8,247 names. Every person who had died in the attack. 3,000 of those names belonged to children. Daiho stopped in front of the wall and just stared. He had seen this memorial in photos, but being here in person was different. Each name represented a life, a person who had dreams and plans and people who loved them, all gone in minutes because the Vrax decided to send a message. I come here every week, a voice said behind them. They turned to see an older woman standing there. She wore civilian clothes and carried flowers. Her face was lined with grief that would never fully heal. My daughter's name is up there, she said, pointing to a spot near the middle of the wall. Sora. She was 7 years old. She wanted to be a doctor. Daiho felt his throat tighten. I am sorry for your loss, the woman nodded. You are Captain Kim, the one who led the attack on the Vrax. Yes. Did it help? She asked. Destroying their fleet? Making them surrender? Did it bring her back? Daiho wanted to say yes. He wanted to tell her that justice had been served, that the Vrax were punished, that her daughter's death meant something. But he could not lie to this woman who had lost everything. No, he said quietly, it did not bring her back. Nothing can do that. The woman nodded again like she had expected that answer. But it did stop them from doing it again. To someone else's daughter. That is something, at least. She placed her flowers at the base of the memorial and walked away. Daiho watched her go, carrying her grief like a weight that would never get lighter. Sir, Minji said softly, the ceremony is about to start. They had come to Terminus 7 for a special event. 6 months after the attack, Earth was holding a remembrance ceremony for everyone who died. Representatives from across human space had come. Even some aliens from the Galactic Council had attended. A stage had been set up near the memorial. Admiral Bowman Chang stood at a podium, waiting for everyone to gather. When the crowd was assembled, he began to speak. 6 months ago, Admiral Chang said, this place was destroyed. 8,000 people died here because another species decided that human lives did not matter. They thought we would accept it. They thought we would negotiate and move on. He paused. They were wrong. Humanity responded with fury. We reminded the galaxy what we are capable of when our people are threatened. We showed them that there are consequences for attacking us. The crowd murmured in agreement, but Admiral Chang raised his hand for silence. But today, he continued, we are not here to celebrate our victory over the Vracs. We are here to remember the people we lost. We are here to honor their memory. And we are here to make a promise. He looked around at the assembled crowd. We promise that their deaths will not be forgotten. We promise that humanity will remain vigilant. We will be strong. We will defend our people. But we also promise that we will not become the monsters we fought. The Vracs killed civilians, Admiral Chang said. They killed children. We had the power to do the same to them. We had every reason to make them suffer the way we suffered, but we chose not to. We chose justice over revenge. We chose mercy over massacre, because that is what it means to be human. He gestured to the memorial wall. These 8,000 people did not die so that humanity could become more violent. They died so that we would remember why we chose peace in the first place. They died so that we would understand the cost of war. And their memory will keep us from forgetting those lessons. The ceremony continued with speeches from other officials and personal stories from survivors, but Deho barely heard any of it. He kept staring at all those names on the wall, thinking about what Admiral Chang had said. After the ceremony ended, Ambassador Hyejin Choi found Deho standing alone by the memorial. She stood beside him quietly for a moment before speaking. You are thinking about what could have been different, she said. It was not a question. Every day, Deho admitted. What if I had moved faster? What if we had better intelligence? What if we had stopped the Vracs before they attacked? You cannot think like that, Hyejin said gently. You did everything you could. We all did. It was not enough. It never is, Hyejin said. That is the burden of command. The people who die on your watch will haunt you forever, but you cannot let that stop you from making the hard choices when they matter. Deho turned to look at her. You think I made the right choice? Not attacking Vrax Prime? I know you did, Hyejin said firmly. You could have destroyed their homeworld. You could have killed billions of Vrax civilians, and it would have felt like justice for about 5 seconds, and then humanity would have to live with being the species that commits genocide. Is that what you wanted? No, Deho said. But sometimes I wonder if we were too merciful, if we should have made them hurt more. They are hurting, Hyejin assured him. Their empire is broken. Their military is gone. Their economy is in ruins. They will spend the next 100 years rebuilding and remembering what they did. That is punishment enough, she pointed to the memorial. Those children did not die so that you could kill other children in revenge. They died because the Vracs made a terrible mistake. We made sure the Vracs paid for that mistake. We made sure they will never make it again. That is all we can do. Deho nodded slowly. He understood her logic. But understanding something and feeling it were different things. Over the next few months, life slowly returned to normal. The human fleet went back to regular duties. The Vracs fulfilled their surrender terms and began rebuilding their society. The Galactic Council went back to having boring diplomatic meetings about trade agreements and border disputes. But things had changed. Other species looked at humanity differently now. They were more careful about how they spoke to human diplomats. They made sure to honor treaties with Earth. They thought twice before doing anything that might upset humanity. Some humans liked this new respect. Others worried about it. If the galaxy was afraid of humanity, was that fear justified? And if it was justified, did that mean humanity had become the dangerous species they had always tried not to be? Captain Deho Kim was promoted to admiral and given command of Earth's entire military. It was an honor he had earned through his leadership during the war. But it also meant he would have to make even harder decisions in the future. On his first day in his new office, he hung a picture on the wall. It was an image of the Terminus 7 Memorial, with all 8,000 names visible. Every morning when he came to work, that would be the first thing he saw. Every order he gave, every decision he made, he would do it with those names watching him. Minji Park and Junho Lee stayed with him as his senior advisors. The three of them had been through too much together to separate now. They understood each other in ways that people who had not fought in the war could not understand. One evening, as they sat in Daeho's office reviewing reports, Junho asked a question. "Sir, do you think we will have to fight like that again? Do you think another species will test us?" Daeho thought about it. Maybe. Probably. The galaxy has a short memory. In 100 years, new species will rise, young aliens who did not see what happened to the Vraks. They might think humanity has gone soft again. They might decide to test us. And if they do, Minji asked. Then we remind them, Daeho said simply. But we do it the right way. We show strength without losing our mercy. We defend our people without becoming monsters. That is the balance humanity has to maintain now. It is not an easy balance, Junho observed. No, Daeho agreed. It is not. But no one said being human was easy. Years passed. The war with the Vraks became history. New challenges emerged. New threats appeared. But humanity faced them with the lessons learned from Terminus 7 always in mind. They remained strong. They remained vigilant. They made sure their military was powerful enough to defend human space against any threat. But they also remained committed to peace. They sought diplomatic solutions first. They followed the rules of war when fighting was necessary. They showed mercy to defeated enemies, and they never forgot the 8,000 names on that memorial wall. The galaxy learned its lesson. When you deal with humanity, you treat them with respect. You honor your agreements. You do not threaten their people. Because if you do, you will face a species that is both capable of terrible violence and disciplined enough to use it precisely. Humanity was not the strongest species in the galaxy. They were not the oldest or the wisest or the most advanced, but they were the species that understood war better than anyone else. They were the species that had almost destroyed themselves with violence and chose to step back from that edge. They were the species that you did not want to make angry.